There we are.
Hey, when
We're
I
here.
did get, I got, so I can't remember if I had mentioned it last week or not, but I did
So
write.
you emailed Jeff, yeah.
Yeah, and then he, like 4 or 5 days later, like unprofessionally late, he just responded, no greeting, no sign off, just volume 2 is going back to print. And I was like, that's the Jeff Stang that I know and love, and I feel ashamed about being around every time. But yes, hardcover volume 2s will be coming out, and we'll be able to have them again. We won't have to pay there he is. In a different room every time, keeping up the trend.
Dang.
Yeah, Jeff Stang, he's just a good guy.
Late.
Yeah.
He just responded.
Jeff Stang is the Prince of
greeting,
Image.
No sign off, just volume 2 is going back to print. And I was
Makes
like,
you what?
Jeff
What?
Stang that
She said Jeff's a good guy because he stays put.
Jeff Stang, different guy.
Different
Image.
Jeff.
Real,
Which is different than Jeff staying.
real piece of work, if I'm gonna be honest. Oh wait, no, their Image. They're probably listening in right now.
Did
Welcome.
everybody read East of West Volume 5 this week? Oh gosh, it's hard to get it to face the camera.
Nice. We got
Win.
digital versions.
Look at that fancy
Love it.
version there.
soon to be in the possession of one Jeff that we know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
It is phenomenal to be here talking about comics with you wonderful people. I'm thankful that all of you are here and that I get to be here and talk to you guys. So thanks for showing up. This is a highlight of a brutal weekend.
Still a weekend?
It's Monday.
Time is meaningless.
Yeah. You know, I kind of consider the weekend up until this thing that we do, you know, like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday is my time to be reading these things. Volume 5, top 2 volumes for Jeff, putting it out there, throwing it out.
I would agree.
Definitely my favorite yet.
It's really tight.
Yeah.
It doesn't have Babylon though. That's the only downside.
I didn't miss the Babylon scenes until the end of the issue and end of the book. And then I was like, wait a minute, we got screwed out of that kid.
Can you imagine waiting 6 months and being like, where is that kid? Like, as this is coming out, just like, what is he up to with that cute balloon?
That's a great point.
Yeah, he's got a beard. He's
yeah.
Rip Van Babylon.
Yeah.
I guess that's one of the tricks with a large ensemble cast in a comic. You know, is that they can't really jam everybody in there, or you end up with, you know, something that Hickman would probably never write, like the X-Men.
Yeah.
I was with you from the very beginning of that statement, ready for it.
This issue had me stop, put the book down, and try and go online and buy a piece of art from the issue, and they were all sold out. Which is a bummer because I know that Nick Dragotta does his art distribution. He had 3 of the pages that I wanted were for sale, but had all sold like probably years ago when this issue came out. But I was heartbroken. But yeah, it was.
Was it issue 22?
It was issue 22. I would have taken any one of the silent pages of that. The silent issue is like my favorite, one of my top 3 favorite issues of the series so far. Did anyone else think that it was issue number 22 and it was the only silent issue, and the G.I. Joe or Snake Eyes issue is 21? It's the first silent issue ever, and there's the people that look like Snake Eyes in it.
Interesting.
I mean, this was basically issue 22 and a bunch of other stuff. I thought it was kind of a middle of the road volume, and then issue 22 was like, okay, I think this is my favorite thing from all of this that I've read, and I'm not actually even reading anything.
Oh, I love a silent issue so much.
I am a sucker for a silent issue because I came really properly into Marvel around the time that the Enough Saids were coming out across all of the series. So yeah, I love the medium being able to do that so well.
Yeah. It's made for it.
I would do some pretty wrong things to get a copy of this.
When that was the page I wanted, and it was on there, and it had sold, and I was like, I'm getting, oh my God. Like,
did it have the sales price?
No, it didn't. And that was what I desperately wanted. And every East of West page was sold. So there was no comparison point. But I would have bought that page, everyone. I would have spent the money that I'm supposed to be saving on that page. Because dang.
the
For
one
me,
thing.
it was the page with when the guy was napping on the horse machine with the
Yeah.
stars. Like, I loved that so much. A little more wholesome, but
Yeah, for sure. The brutality of the final 3 pages of that one sequence were amazing. The one where she snaps the sword in two and then it like ends with that shot. That was the other one I desperately wanted. Oh.
Yeah, the sword snapping was something I haven't seen before.
That's the only issue of all of this that I have reread out of excitement and not confusion.
Dang, that's so well said and also such a statement.
I every page through it, I was like, oh my god, I hope that there's not text on the next page. And I got like halfway through, I was like, wait, what's the name of this issue? And I was like, oh, moment of silence. Perfect. I'm not worried anymore. Like, it was just so good.
My favorite, the page in here that made me think the most about like storytelling and creative ideas, and made me want to rewatch Mad Max again for the second time this week was this one. It's so cool.
Those 3 pages.
Yeah.
More silent world building. And I thought like, yeah, this volume, particularly the first 3 issues of it, I was just so excited about as I was reading it. Like the use of the medium, the storytelling was so great. The way the time shifting sort of those first 3 issues was so cool. I had to like go back and look at all of it. Like, okay, so when did she, like when was she one of the monks, or like when did that happen? And solving that puzzle was like just. We went back into the room with the big meeting, and I was like, "We're back in that room. I love that room."
More circles.
Yeah, more circles. Yeah, I just this volume had me so fired up.
Did you the scene where she tells Doma Lux that she's going to have to go to talk to the Endless Nation, I thought was awesome.
I was
so good.
The 3 boxes sitting on the desk and
with the butt.
just her like,
yeah, the butt.
And so that kind of made me wonder if the butt that got shipped back is not who they think it is, if we're going to see that person later. Because with no
Whose
head,
butt,
like
Django?
I don't know.
That's
It could
a
be
good point.
anybody's butt, but you don't like,
There's just going to be some buttless
Like,
guy
yeah.
coming in on like
Somebody
some
walking around with
revenge
no
kid.
butt.
Okay,
And
just
it's
like
just a person in the background, though. It's not going to be even explored, really.
I mean, we do fingerprints, we don't do butt prints, so maybe they have that person as a hostage or something.
That's true. Yeah, the identification factors of a butt, like you have to work really hard to get to the point where, like, the fingerprint.
that would be the
material is
end of
available.
the investigation.
Yeah. When Buckley, detective. Okay, so this first issue, just to get us away from that moment. Gosh, okay. So this felt like the most we really got to sort of have some insight into the Endless Nation.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only time we've been in the Endless Nation, right?
yes,
Like
it's
it's
seen anyone who wasn't like in the top 3 people. Yeah, like Chiveo and the chief of chief and his like 2 assistants and the war chief. But yeah.
And that whole introduction shot was gorgeous, showing like the giant pillars with the guards on them from afar. Oh,
and then
that
the pride
city.
Of
More silent stuff.
Yeah.
And what I loved with introducing the chief of chiefs within the city, because you've had all this mystery about how the Endless Nation functions internally, and they're just seen as these like passionless machine people for a lot of the that's the image they portray to the rest of the nations. And to then see the chief of chiefs lounging around on a sofa in jeans and a t-shirt, smoking on a cigarette was
constantly
refreshing. Yeah. It was perfect.
Yeah, it kind of shows you that their public persona is a complete sham.
Well, I loved even in that conversation that he was talking about like it is not a relationship with technology that they are just like, yeah, we're pro tech. Like this conversation about how like this isn't how our past was, you know, like we can't even find ourselves by looking at the stars because we can't even see the stars.
Yeah, the meeting with the other chiefs. I loved that scene as well.
Yeah.
I'd really been looking forward to more of the next examination of the Endless Nation, and and I think the fact that he was smoking all the time and that reference to the stars are really important ones, because those are both means of communing with the spirits tradition within Native American traditions. That's the sky is a portal to the other world, and smoke carries messages to your ancestors. And he's the only person there who makes reference to those before barreling off on a mecha steed to go be with spirits that he's not supposed to.
Well, and then the mecha steed is a really interesting thing, because now we know that that's the same tech that Death uses. So he's got some. This whole volume like really started linking up just like the whole political chessboard. Like I loved it because, every time the PRA is mentioned, because like in one of the issues it's thrown out like 7 times, and every time I stop and I'm like, okay, this is the PR. Like every time I kind of like, I don't know, I really like the stopping and like constantly reassessing the power structure and what I'm learning about who is connecting with who.
Emily, were you going to say something? Okay.
I was just nodding along. I was checking my book.
Did we know that Doma Lux was friends with Wolf and Crow?
I don't think we knew anything
None
about
of that. That I was
Doma
very
Lux.
surprised, and I loved it. I love Doma Lux.
We had hints.
But Freeman is who was friends with Crow, and sorry, Wolf.
Wolf.
Oh, maybe I was just.
And we knew that.
We did know that.
Yes, that
The
at
Freeman
least
and
had
Wolf,
been
yeah.
referenced at some point.
Okay.
We also had it referenced that Doma was something more than what she was.
I'm remembering the panel, if not where it is. There's a panel of the prince with Cheveo and Wolf, because he was sent off to. Yeah, and that's the explanation for how he ended up joining the Chosen, is because he was kind of sent off on a sort of, I think of it as very Samurai Jack, go off into the world and learn stuff.
Okay, cool. I didn't
child.
pick up on that. So I was like, when they sort of seeded that in here, I got really excited for the inevitable reunion of those two.
I guess for
Jeff,
me,
you said you figured out the timeline. That was one thing where I was like, I did not quite figure out the timeline.
I didn't figure it out for sure, but I kept looking for, okay, is this arrival here and Doma getting caught? Is that then she goes to the House of Mao? And I don't think so. I do think that she had already been at the House of Mao, had gone out into the world, and then that's why the other Widowmaker does clearly, as Doma's getting punched, she has that I can't take this anymore, and intervenes. And I think it's because she had known what her path has been, and then from there the timeline seemed relatively linear because we're watching them on the screen and everything. But yeah, there was some time jumping. I don't know that I've got it for sure. Mike, I think could elucidate.
Yeah, I've right. Okay, so we start after the Donna Lux conversation with President. We're going straight into a flashback. We've got the kind of sepia tone, slightly brown tinge that generally indicates this is a flashback.
Lack of black, like Django mentioned.
Yeah.
In the
Plus, Mao is there. Mao,
the father,
Shaolin's father. Yeah. Then we're going, transitioning into present day. The ship arriving at the city, but with the voiceover of Mao addressing the Widowmakers. That's then bookended at the end of the episode with going back to the flashback, same flashback where the Widowmaker, who's been sent as a diplomatic envoy, is in the same Widowmaker training facility with Donna Lux. Donna Lux was, and they're talking about how everybody who's a widowmaker is a discarded person. They are taken in by the House of Mao, trained, and then let loose back to the places that discarded them. Doma Lux was discarded by presumably the North. I forget the exact name of the nation, just the Union. She was discarded by the Union, but then she was trained to be a sleeper agent by the House of Mao. Because he references that they were like the whole idea of them being the personal bodyguard. That's a front.
Do you think they have sleeper agents in like every nation?
Yeah.
Yeah,
because you see a bunch of different nationalities and skin tones and stuff in that flashback. So yes,
speaking of skin tones, everywhere. Why? I don't think it's really been pointed out, but I didn't really come to the realization till this volume that Doma Lux is the same skin color as Death and as Crow or Wolf. Which was
Wolf.
Crow and Wolf.
Oh, I thought it was makeup, but that's totally in this world, totally possible.
The thing that jumped out at me was when she meets John Freeman on she meets the prince on, let's see, she gets the money, all the gold from the prince. And then like 2 pages later, we see the prince hanging out with Wolf. And what that made me think was that maybe Doma Lux is somebody that the prince knew from those days, or maybe he knew her relative, her father, Wolf. I don't know.
I think the part that made it kind of confusing for me was Doma Lux showing up there and then her partner also being there felt so like serendipitous that it almost made it feel like that had to be the moment that led to Doma Lux becoming a Widowmaker, because to show up at that place as like the Madam President head was just like, well, yeah, you should do it on the 8th envoy going on there, and then the Widowmakers being there. It while serving the story perfectly, that was one part where I was like, gosh, that is like a large amount of coincidence, but also I don't know how to write.
Well, they're both. The fact that she was a Widowmaker, she was sent back to the Union deliberately so that she would climb the ranks, and it's pretty big coincidence that they were lovers and they happened to run into each other. Like
just that they ran into each other here because they just got off that airplane with the chief, and it's like, okay, we're all arriving here right now.
But then we're also in a entire storyline about prophecies. Coincidences are kind of part of the
100%. Yeah, no, for sure. And it was my favorite shit. So no criticisms of it here, but
also, are we sure that Doma Lux didn't manipulate the president into choosing her?
I think that's definitely part of it.
Like, was this part of their plan?
She's so savvy in that whole page, like.
Yeah. Because I was going to say, like, the thing that I like about those first couple of pages is how you're seeing her disarmed for the first time. She's been so, on the ball so much.
But
and then she's surprised, surprised by, the turn of events that means she's being sent off to the Endless Nations. But yeah, you're right. That could absolutely be her, feigning ignorance or in order to.
Because I mean, if I were trying to convince someone that I wasn't in on anything that had happened since I came into her service, I would not be being like, oh yeah, sure, I'll go do this thing where, nearly a dozen other people have already gone and gotten killed and sent back in a box that's mostly like their head and I guess in this case a butt.
Right.
Yeah, totally. I'm all on board with that. Like, no, like
you need to resist.
If you're trying to keep up that outward, like, seemingly be all part of the plan and just stumbling upon things, you would want to act surprised that she wants to send you. But also, like, I totally agree, it was part of her plan. Like, she's clearly shown herself to be capable of setting people up. Like, I mean, she got in into a relationship with what's his face and shoved a bomb down his throat. So
he smells of you.
I mean, it's kind of con man 101 where you make somebody think that it was their idea all along, and you
Well, and
resist
I
it a little bit.
also just remembered as we're talking about this that like then later on we have the flashback of them at the meeting, and she does see her partner, who then they start communicating. He tells her to launch the bomb. So at that point, they know that they're probably, without knowing exactly what's going on, working in a similar trajectory of like, okay, we're in the same arena. Let's find each other.
Yeah.
So
How
good.
much time has passed since the meeting, do we think? Because we're saying, well, this is so serendipitous, but like, are they like sending a person every day and it's just so happened that like on the 10th day that this is happening? That's a little bit less
10th
serendipitous.
day of Christmas.
well, I know, I
One
think it
big
says
old
in the
butt.
world
Yeah.
one shot that the siege of Texas or whatever took a month.
Okay.
And
Oh,
like
right.
volume 4 is after that, so it's
And we're
at
in year
least
2.
it's at least a month or two at this point by volume 5. Again, like it's not like he has little date stamps on anything, but I'm pretty sure it's at least a month between 3 and 4. So
Issue 2, we get the overt reference to Deadlands, Mike. I couldn't unsee Mike's face right there.
Same thing.
I love the blue in the background. In what is this, number 21? Did I just skip ahead an issue?
I don't know
what's what.
Not particularly. We're heading that direction.
Like
during the meeting, you mean?
These pages are so pretty.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a sucker for that much blue on a page.
The page in your right hand, Django, is like, we'll oftentimes talk about like the 9-panel grid that like Watchmen uses, but that like just it's a table shot, and the way the dialogue progresses and then dividing the page into 2 stacks of 4 panels that like allow the flow of conversation to go with the way that it was presented is like really smart paneling.
It's lesser comics would keep those as like 2 giant panels and it would be a mess. And
I don't want to jump ahead too much, but later on in that issue, when the chief does go out and finds the body of Cheveo that has the other entity in it, it seemed like kind of basic comic booking at the beginning, that their text bubbles would be white silhouettes with black interior and then white lining. But then through that nature of the comic book, and then just like the duality of where he's from versus where the chief is from, like it is so intrinsically like an opposite thing that that color selection was even better to me. Like you get black, backgrounds at times, but this is like perfect. It emphasizes the difference that they're trying to express.
Jeff, can you tell us the voice that you read that in?
I'm a bad person to ask about that. It's all just sort of different flavors of Jeff.
I liked with Nutiet, the entity that we're talking about. I loved the appearance of this Hwark. Onomatopoeia. I just imagine that as this, coarse bestial crowing coming from this skull, and it's perfect.
I very inaccurately heard that as the Christopher Nolan Inception. But it still gets every time I read that.
Emily, I was trying to remember that. I was just gonna say that part of that monster is what is inside Belle Solomon, right? Or is it part of Cheveo that's inside? Or
part of Cheveo is
inside,
and a monster.
I think monsters
in separate.
The monster, Cheveo,
Is the other monster the one that Orion rides? Did that was also,
and that's like that was like summoned by Cheveo, so that's like how I think that's how like part of Cheveo's inside Belle Solomon.
Got it. He's got a lot going on.
I love.
And then Cheveo like summoned up something else inside of himself, and that's kind of what's taken over.
This is making so much more sense on my second read. It's the first time I was like,
I love this part of this story of just the sort of like kind of every page reassessing where we're at. But Emily, the the scene of him falling asleep on the mechanical dog horse is amazing, and then the text that immediately precedes that, and dead time is just another way of saying dream time, and that's easy enough to access on its own. Like, it's just learned so much. Oh, and that was so good. Like, very deft character work in that issue.
The difference, like the motion between this dog horse robot and that dog horse robot,
right?
Like
another page that I would love to have.
Yeah.
Or poster. Can we please have posters?
Yeah, can we?
I'll call Nick.
Hey, listen, I'll get Jeff on another email. That seems to work well.
He'll say no.
Yeah.
Another thing that's like such a small detail that I love on this page is like, and it's a little hard to see on here, but like that there's still the stream of z going up from his head in the background. Like, it's a little hard to see on there, but like, because it's like the moon, and then it shows him like asleep, and then it's zooming out so that we can see that this entity is coming up on him.
So there are more entities coming up the hill that he shoots on this page, right?
Yeah. Those are like lesser spirits punching their way up through the Deadlands in order to just harass the guy.
Okay, just like Koopa Troopers.
You remember Constantine, the movie Constantine? All the little guys that are getting through.
Yeah.
The lessers.
Yeah.
When to your point about the Z's, I noticed in the next issue as well, like when the fail message is being sent through the text, the way that like the ... sort of spirals up, or the mail symbol spiraled up into the air to show that it had sent, was just it's been really cool. At this point, issue 22, Nick Dragotta has been doing nothing but this comic for probably 3 years at this point, and drawing it probably 4 or 5 days a week, if not more. He's just becoming a much better cartoonist before our eyes, and it's really cool to read that and watch that. Even like in the first issue, Madam President, like the way that he draws her head, almost like Disney character-esque at times, like super thin and very tall, and then he's got the people that are like very normal looking, and just sort of like getting comfortable leaning into just being comfortable breaking standardization or something. I really, really enjoy it.
Have we had the same colorist the whole time?
I believe so.
Okay.
I think so.
So I do have to break some sad news though about the one silent issue, is it does have some text.
I know.
Right at the very end.
Such a good page though.
It is such a good page of like, oh yes, he's continuing to do his thing where he's just the worst.
Can I point out the thing that the one thing that ruined the silent issue for me? Was the Spider Woman on the rooftop cover panel.
I thought of that exact same panel. I thought of exactly the same Manara Spider Woman thing. It almost felt to me like Nick Dragotta trying to say like, I can make that physically work. Like, you're trying to say a person can't bend over like that. Yeah, that is interesting. I thought
it's like thing. And like where the water is running, it like almost looks like her butt crack is sideways.
Right.
I noticed that. It was
like
notable.
I'm pretty sure it's not supposed to be her butt crack, but just it's what it looks like. It looks like like her butt is off center.
Off center and real long.
You're totally right. This would have been another page to have though. The like realization shot of like underwater, there's an assassination attempt, all of my friends are dead. Like, just wow. Talk about a lot of words that don't need to be said in a panel.
I really liked just the first page, which is probably the most boring thing ever, but it sets the scene so well with the hovering storage unit. I guess, what do they call those? They're not
shipping containers.
I guess it's a shipping container, but they don't go on trains anymore.
No, they just fly.
They still are used for shipping.
Yeah.
We just need
a
box.
Did that one agent have a gun that was also a smartphone?
Right,
the one really interesting.
The one that tried to write the fail thing. It's like,
you're right. I did spot that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I don't want one. It's like not what I'm hoping to get out of the future. But it's very futuristic.
You know what I always feel like is a shortcoming of whatever new iPhone comes out?
Not a gun.
Not a gun.
I mean, there's probably a YouTube video about that. I know there's a YouTube video about how to turn an old smartphone into a taser.
Oh, okay. We can get it done then.
Oh, sorry. I'm just looking at the sending the message panels, and yeah, just noticing it's a gun essentially.
Yeah.
But it also has a micro USB port and a headphone jack.
Oh, look at that.
Hey,
Bluetooth or
those
Firewire.
symbols developed the same, even on an alternate America.
So
Steve
the AirPods
Jobs
didn't catch on.
Yeah, Steve Jobs did not happen in this world.
Mike, it does. You mentioned the Nuff Said month of Marvel, era of Marvel, and those were like silent issues, and then many of them would have a page of text at the end like that, like Jean and Gray walk out of the room, or Jean and Emma rather, and have a conversation. And yeah, it reminded me of those Marvel Nuff Saids as well.
That was crazy. Why didn't you talk? Well, I thought you were about to talk.
Sorry, this is another weird development thing, but also just noticing that they're using the QWERTY keyboard. Again, it's a weird thing to notice, but I'm like, you're still using the QWERTY keyboard.
You're talking my language, Win.
I did. I was like, ASD. Dang it! Look at that. They looked at the thing.
Taking a few steps back, that line that Jeff mentioned, and dead time is just another way of saying dream time.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that that's why Death has developed such a close relationship with the Endless Nation, or people from the Endless Nation, because they have that duality, that connection to death and the underworld?
Well, when we had Death entering Sea of Bones in Volume 2, he made reference, kind of at least poetic reference to the fact that it's Deadlands. I can go and come and go as I please. I'm Death. But yeah, it's dead time is just another way of saying dream time. That's because those two concepts are interchangeable within the kind of loose spirituality involved. It's kind of subdivided a little bit, but dreams are the same sphere of spiritual existence within which dead spirits go.
And it makes sense that, given the Endless Nation has a relationship with dead spirits or the afterlife at all, it totally makes sense that Death would maybe be able to have more in common with that community than the Union, for example.
Dead's dead.
Dead's dead.
Die. I want to show you guys my probably least favorite panel in the book, because it gave me the willies.
The Williams.
The whole book is so sharp. All the lines are real precise, and there's not a lot of squishy, mushy artwork. But when you see this guy's mushy mouth that just got hit with a sword, that one gave me the willies. I thought it was really well done. To change from very confident lines to just kind of it's kind of like a mouth, but it sucks.
Yeah, that's a Marvel Zombies feeding panel. That's,
yeah. It's kind of like a mouth, really, but it sucks is a good quote.
I think another call in that issue that we've obviously talked a lot about, that is Nick doing a great job, is the difference between the two pages that you guys mentioned that you loved, that were the first one with her underwater, which shows so much humanity still. And that's the Nick Dragotta face. It's kind of cartoony and anime and a little bit just really cartoony. And then it shows that she's real and human, and it's cool that he's able to draw her like that. And then you get to the splash page of her while she's just standing after she's murderized a bunch of people and made a mouth that looks like a mouth. And she just is horrific. And I think it's just rad that he did both of those things. And I think this book itself, I wasn't sure at first whether it was how purposeful it was, how different his art can be, or if he just doesn't have that much of a wheelhouse. But I think now it feels purposeful, and I love that we get all sides of it, even though it's not always, it's consistent in what it is, but you're going to get a face that doesn't look like it belongs in this book along with another face.
And even the similarities in the faces sometimes, I think, with the art kind of throws me off, just how the character modeling is so there's one of the higher up people from the Endless Nation that looks strikingly like Doma Lux, that had me thinking for a second, wait, is this Doma Lux, but now she's just different? Or so sometimes that art throws me off and confuses me a little bit when I'm already confused enough.
I feel like his panels are so good, and faces are slowly catching up. But yeah, there's still the like, why is one eye bigger? Why is your nose just slits? I don't know. It's the angles. It's like the, not quite sure where to go when someone's doing that or whatever.
Yeah, and like,
I feel bad saying that because the art is amazing. It's just sometimes the eyes are weird.
No, I'm with you. There's a lot of nudity in this issue, and I don't know. I'm not necessarily one to speak, but like, it also didn't feel super exploitative, and also felt like it said an amount about her character and also the way that it was used. I don't know. In an industry that has a lot of cheesecake, I guess I question, like, how do other people feel about that much nudity in a comic, and is the presence of it all necessarily exploitative, or do you think it was used well? I mean, or did it not need to be there? Or
in general, I didn't think it was unfitting. Like, they've shown like before that like Xiaolin is pretty unmodest as far as that goes. Like, like, isn't there like 3 or 4 volumes ago there was a panel where she was just standing in front of basically her entire army.
Yep.
Just like, I'm the boss now.
Yeah.
So it didn't feel out of character. And other than that one panel that we already commented on about the weird Minara butt thing, it didn't really feel like anything was a super sexualized pose or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And even that like one panel, I wouldn't call it sexualized like at all. I would just say that's bad anatomy and didn't come off well, and her butt is sideways.
No, it really does feel like I would check. I mean, I almost want to check the dates on when this came out relative to that Spider-Woman thing, because I feel like there were other artists at the time that tried to say, like, can I use this anatomy and make it look realistic? I think there was like a kind of a challenge people did.
I noticed that panel also, but I just thought that it was a really good follow-up to the move that she had done on the previous panel, because like the way that she's got that guy and the way that she has to throw him, that's approximately where I would probably end up if I didn't break my neck trying to do that.
I've seen you do a lot of like throw kicks, and you do end up pretty generally in that position. That's a pretty yeah, I guess I just, like with comics and then where the medium is at and how long it's been going on, if there is nudity, I always kind of question, like, does it need to be there? And in this situation, I liked the presence of it, but also it's nudity, so
it's a whole bunch of different like Western media tropes in there. The whole, fighting while naked, the sort of sexy assassin sort of moves that are going on in there.
Yep.
But yeah, like, I feel like a lot of the way that the art is done is this kind of fast, loose style. There are panels where, if they were sexualizing it, they would have put a lot more detail into the butt, it wouldn't be this kind of, it's very fast and loose. But then I think what really changes it is that last big single page picture, because there, where there's zero detail in the face, there's so much detail in the body.
And like the physique
the muscles
of the body,
in the legs and the veins in the arms. Yeah, that is power. That is not sexual objectification at all. That is not a male gaze. It's sexy as hell, but it's not male gaze.
They're showing that she's like literally in her bedroom in her bath, like taking a bath, and she still takes out like 7 assassins or something. Like, she's not a helpless person.
Right. And I was just gonna say that's the coolest fucking scene of all of it right there, and it has nothing to do with nudity. It's her breaking a sword in half.
And they're fucking
and
just
fighting
like
them both.
Cool
Goku veins.
gloves.
And the answer to how things line up timeline wise between the release of this and the Minara thing. So the Minara thing was August 2014. This came out looks like late 2015.
Okay.
So could easily be a reference.
About
but
a year
regardless,
after, but
it's still way better.
Oh, it's way better. The Minara,
Yeah, but like to Django's point, like definitely looking at the panels leading up to that one shot, and like honestly, I hadn't thought too hard about it until like the mention of like that is a really odd pose, but it does still make sense considering that she's basically like jumped on this guy's face and then done a backflip to flip him into the pool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, it makes sense how she would land like that, even if it
Sure.
still is like, it looks weird once you point it out. But that's the same with like the sneers. I hadn't really noticed, and it wasn't bothering me until someone else pointed out that, like, people sneer a lot in this book.
I'm just kind of a sucker for somebody winning a fight and being naked the whole time. Like,
he is. It's a real power move he uses at work. Verbal arguments always come down to which one of us is naked, and then whoever is wins.
I bet there's like more time for that, considering you don't have anyone in the store.
It's still surprising how busy we are, but there's always good times to argue.
Just wait till we get the new window covers up.
Who is drinking tea ever? Who is, unless they make it themselves, who is going into a room to talk to somebody, especially if maybe they've fucked up, and drinking tea? Don't we know that by now? Like, aren't we done with that?
It's a different world, Jeff.
A
They
guy
haven't read
who
those
specifically leads assassins. Like, that's this guy's job. Is
like, like if it were a tall glass, I would take the excuse of, well, it's sweet tea, but it's not a tall glass. It's
The only
they are in the South.
Because I think that was handed to
That's
us,
true.
and it made me a little disappointed in old Johnny Hickey here. But his only out is, I think that if it's realistic that the dude who got poisoned is going to drink it because he knows what's going to happen, and it doesn't matter, and he knows he's going to get killed anyway.
Or he
If
knows
he's
he
that
fucked
smart.
up, and he's
He's that smart. It
terrified
doesn't-
of
it doesn't
offending
matter.
at all.
Like,
but
sure, drink the freaking poison, let him play their game. I'm going to get shot in the head anyway. It doesn't matter.
if he's going to kill me with the tea, he's going to kill me with a bullet. Yeah, that's true.
I have
Just gonna
thoughts
drink my
on
tea.
the 22 issue. So
Okay, please, yeah.
that issue was very, very, very good. I'm a little bit of the two sides of it. Not my normal cup of tea. I wouldn't read it if it wasn't in this thing. I don't think it was over sexualized. I don't think it was male gaze at all. I can agree on all of that. I do think that the issue needed it, and that's a little bit of a knock to the issue, because I thought, like, oh cool, like what if we had that silent issue and she wasn't naked? Like, okay, like cool.
Yeah, it would
Like,
change a lot of context too.
I've seen that a
I mean,
bunch.
she could have still been in her pajamas.
And
I
there's
will-
ways to show it to us, of course. And if it had to be in a Marvel comic, it would have been Daredevil in his pajamas or whatever, but we
Right.
wouldn't be talking about it like this. And it probably, I would argue, probably wouldn't have been able to stand as a silent issue, because it would have felt like, you can't waste a silent issue on that unless there's something that good.
I would say, only as a counterexample, that the moment where I was like I was like turning the page hoping there wasn't dialogue and like went back to look at the title was before there was any nudity in it. For me, so like all of that happened before, like so maybe it couldn't have
That's
stood
a
on its
great-
own for
Great point.
sure.
Seriously, yeah.
But
Okay.
I love, I mean, I'm sort of like 2 years on the podcast of just sort of being like, give me silent issues.
Couldn't you argue though that that's exactly why it was needed then? That's the purpose that it did serve, is that it made the issue, it made everything actually work, and it wasn't overly sexualized in any nature. Like, wouldn't that be the point where you can justify nudity for something like that, because
Is
it
when
makes
you
the story
don't
work?
need it?
Yeah, I think that is kind of what
You
I'm
actually do need
saying.
it.
Yes, because it feels like both. If I read that issue and there wasn't any nudity in it, it wouldn't have been as good.
Right.
But also, me personally, I didn't want it there. Like, that's not my thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it was better for it. And I don't know. But it makes me feel weird to say like that issue was so good, but if you took out this one thing that could be construed as a cheap trick, which it was not, for the record, but a thing that could be construed as a cheap trick, that it would be less than. And that made me like, is it? But hearing you guys talk about it a little bit more, and especially with what Jeff said, it's not, clearly is not just a cheap trick. It's like any thing where you come across Daredevil in his apartment and he's, I don't know, like there's just 1,000 ways to do it, and nudity is just one of those, and it was pretty rad.
That the way that you just expressed that though reminds me of how I oftentimes feel about music, and a thing that can really bum me out about music is like when lyrics are like really, really sexual, and it feels like it's just kind of being used as a way to like, hey, here's a thing we all have in common, and instead of going for like something really deep, I'll go for this thing that is very widely accessible, and that's
And it
me
makes
being
you pay
judgmental.
attention. And it
Yeah,
says like, look at me real quick, and
yeah,
like make
and-
sure that people are looking at you.
But that's also me just being like judgmental music guy who wants to play music and hasn't played music. So like I'll find reasons to take other people down. But it is like that is a thing that can be a bummer to me, is like when music is like, does it need to be hypersexualized? And I guess that's why I even kind of posed the question in here, is I'm just really curious how other people feel about it in a medium, because it is such a thing that can be used in a sort of a mechanical way as a mechanism to do a thing. And yeah, I'm just glad everyone sort of talked about that. Everyone had really good input about
Wynn,
that.
did you pull a Daredevil book off your shelf?
No, I'm on
I was just
Tetrix for what it
thinking,
is.
Oh,
so
okay.
the whole thing about the over-sexualization made me think of the Hawkeye Initiative, which, if anyone's not unfamiliar, it was a thing in like right after the Avengers movie came out, and it was basically about how all the merch had Black Widow in super sexy poses. And it was kind of part of like the same thing where like they were calling out the fact that, you know, typically female superheroes are more often to be drawn in super sexy poses. And I was like thinking like, well, are there any like examples of like dudes having naked fight scenes that would be less impactful? And was trying like, I just
Other
got
than
stuck
Eastern
on the
Promises.
Actions Hawkeye.
Anyway, but I was thinking of an issue from New Avengers during the Siege event. I think it's annual number 3. It's basically the all the women team up to go save Clint Barton because Clint Barton's an idiot. But anyway, so he decided he was gonna go kill Norman Osborn because Norman Osborn is being Iron Patriot at this point. And pretty much the entire time, Clint is buck naked. It's really pretty. I'd have to double check it to see like who the artist is.
Oh yeah.
Oh, wow.
And like for the most part, like I would definitely not characterize it as like sexualized or anything. Although there is one panel that maybe is a little bit, if I can find it. It has Venom, so of course it's weird.
Ooh. I mean, if you want to talk about triggers.
So yeah.
That tongue.
Yeah, I know.
Right?
Yeah, that green slime.
Yeah, so yeah, like pretty much the entire issue up until when Bobby and Spider-Woman save him, he's just buck naked, and it's has nothing to do with anything else. But I definitely like it's an example of a thing like if he was still in his costume, because at this point he's also like this is during the time he's dressing up as a ninja and calling himself Ronin. Which, hey, Hawkeye Freefall coming to a paperback trade near you.
Yeah, coming to a digital.
Yeah, I have opinions. Of course, I have opinions about that. But anyway, so that, like, getting back on topic, I thought of that while we were having this discussion of, like, is the nudity really necessary? And, like, yeah, it'd be less impactful with her in her pajamas rather than in her birthday suit. But, yeah, I think that like discussing whether or not it's needed or not is kind of a moot point. It's in there and it's a great issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, what were you just gonna say?
I was just going to tack on that what probably makes what's probably good for that issue is, or that annual is, you could compare the two for what makes the nudity in those scenes work really well, and it can be things like how the characters are fairly indifferent to it, having action scenes with nudity that portray the body moving really well, that kind of stuff. Because if I remember rightly, it's one of those Bobby and Spider-Woman charge in and he's naked, but he doesn't really care that they're seeing him naked. Is that right?
He's being tortured, so yeah,
right.
No one really cares that he's naked at that point.
It all comes back to the Star Trek.
He's like being made to have flashbacks to when he got killed. So
right, but like if it were more childish or something, there would be like him trying to cover himself and looking all embarrassed or something. And I think when you don't have that, and the character's just kind of owning it, then yeah, there's something that works with that.
There's storytelling going on there. Do we feel like in the following issue that why did we kill the other people that were delivering the gold?
I think Domo is going to be keeping some of it,
and maybe even all of it.
I thought she and John Freeman were like buddies from like I feel like they were making the point that they were also buddies from way back in some way I don't quite understand. And they were like, haha, it's just us buddies now.
I kind of thought that Freeman might be a sleeper agent as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Doesn't he does the tap tap, just like
Oh,
I never noticed that.
Nice.
So like the other people are there with her, right? And then he signals
Yeah.
to her, like, because they're in cahoots or whatever, they have history, and then they load everything up and kill him.
Dude, I totally
thought
missed
Spoilers
that
comic.
tap.
I don't know that is though.
I don't think it's the same tap.
It's not.
You don't
it's
think
just
so?
saying like, look what I got.
But it-
all the
but it
Widowmakers are
does-
female.
It looks
Im-
exactly the same as all the other tapping that happened. I'm
And
flipping
it
back there.
immediately follows with a panel of Doma Lux unrobing and exposing that she's there, like, which we didn't know before. I mean, also, I'm never one to say that this is definitely the answer either way, but with you saying that, Will, that makes a lot of sense to me, especially if other people are feeling like there was maybe the feeling that they knew each other beforehand.
Sorry, I'm reading like into the subtext of those panels on that page now, because he's just kind of, okay, that's far enough. I've seen you before. That doesn't mean I know
Okay.
you.
Okay.
Where is she? Then he
body
taps,
language,
and then
tap,
she
tap.
says, "Ah, yes," as if she's acknowledging something herself. And that's immediately after those taps.
I don't think it's the same design as the other taps, though.
The other
because
taps
that
have
says
periods.
tap. Yeah, and they have multiple taps in them.
And they're in a different font.
I did
But,
think that when I
yeah,
saw
like,
it, well, for sure.
It definitely
but
still
then-
feels like not an unintentional parallel. Because, like, I mean, he is kind of signaling that, hey, I have this gun, and like, we don't really have full context on what led up to her arrival, other than that she's there to pick up a whole bunch of gold.
So if not that, then how? I mean, not how, or
Why
even
would
like
they-
looking to prove or disprove, but like, then what happened to between that moment of them not knowing each other, then to them killing both the people?
So-
and I reread the dialogue, I just didn't pick it up.
I think there's two possibilities. It's he is a sleeper agent. He's a Widowmaker, or because after they killed the security people, she says, in accordance with that trust, huh? He says exactly, either you're one of us or you're not. Either he is sticking really much to his guns as a chosen, because his whole being, his whole reluctance at the beginning and his threatening posturing and stuff was that this isn't the president, this isn't the member of the chosen coming and doing this. This is an envoy sent with her blessing. And that's why she's being left to live.
I think the president told John to kill the companions, because in the hologram she says, please embrace her as you would one of our own, and treat her companions in accordance with that trust. So I think that he was acting on the president's
one of
orders
us as
there.
the chosen, and then the other people as not the chosen.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that he was carrying out her orders, and Doma was in on that as well.
That does make some sense.
I was
They
trying
didn't
to
wanna
spin
lift
off
it.
on the, like, she's not gothy, she's actually one of those animal spirit people, but it sounds like it's a little more straightforward than that.
Yeah.
I mean, my brain was getting off on a tangent of thinking, well, how long has he been the first?
Yeah.
Like, there probably used to be some people ahead of him in line.
Yeah.
I guess I really like being this deep in a story that is this complex and still feeding new things. That, like, it's really cool to be volume 5 of 9 in, and like, that's a conversation we just had. Like, that rules.
That was why I liked this volume so much, is that we kind of got to see the cobwebs and like all the different secret alliances people had that we didn't know about yet, but did feel like it added a lot of context to things that we had experienced, like the meeting.
And it almost, as I was reading this, was thinking that, like, I almost felt like maybe Hickman's organization in his brain as he's writing this, as he does sort of alternate volumes of, like, one was sort of a capstone, but then 2 dealt a little bit more with like the Apocalypse Trio and Babylon, and then 3 went back to like a really political thing, and then 4 was very Babylon and Apocalypse focused, and then he wasn't at all in this one. And it feels a little bit like a writer maybe who does want to maintain a type of focus as he gets certain things done, and we're not jumping all over the board. And it also, while I really like the Babylon stuff, I do think I prefer this sort of like puzzle solving of political motivation. And as these are unraveling, which is why I was realizing I think 3 and 5 I really like, while 2 and 4 are very, very good, but they have a very sort of different tone to them in terms of who are the players of it and stuff.
I would agree for sure.
Also, tattoos, like they got tattoo science, like they're still using the same tattoo gun.
Yeah, but then
that's pretty close to what we've got.
They've got different kind of email systems.
Yeah.
They just wrap your skin around a scroll.
Yeah, that does not look like a regulation needle on that, though.
No, the tip's not very good.
I thought he was gonna say a regulation like skin scroll. Like...
That's not what we're allowed to send through the Deadlands. Yeah,
that actually grossed me out. I don't know why I like latched onto that as being gross with everything going on. I was like, that's actually gross.
The sequence did make me cringe quite a bit. I was like, oh.
I just finished watching Mad Max Fury Road, and there's a scene very much like this.
Yeah, where with Max, when they're being all like, he's a blood bag now.
Yeah, universal donor.
Crazy blood.
I loved there. I was like, okay, well, let's open this book back up because I know I've seen these scrolls at other points in this volume. So who else is just packing flesh scrolls in here?
Let's make a deal to never say flesh scrolls again. Okay?
Yeah, it felt bad in the mouth. I won't do it again.
Okay, meat paper.
Meat paper. That's much better.
Who is he tattooing on the back of?
Fucking just the most badass woman in the world.
Is that Wolverine?
I don't know who.
It's
exactly
Wolverine.
Yeah, Wolverine's healing factor. He's the perfect scroll.
There wouldn't be enough bare skin though. It'd all be hair.
Yeah, but you could cut a chunk off and it would regrow. It's like a refilling tablet.
But what
renewable energy?
With this guy though, both these panels, I think gore and tattoos and skin scrolls and stuff. But what I think the main thing that unnerved me in this was the color of his eyes.
Yeah,
I don't know if that was just like a colorist decision or something, but that orangey red tinge just tells you, he's been through a lot, more than anything else in the pages.
So his name is Daniel. Was the bartender in the beginning who had the Oracle's eye? Was his name Daniel?
His hair was white, and also I think they just called him the Hunter.
Okay. I feel like we've seen this guy before. I tend to notice people with really cool sideburns and
Oh yeah. It's like they tortured a much more haired Django.
I mean, they're implying that there's been like 7 people that they flayed to make the 7 scrolls. So I think he's just a disposable guy.
Oh, that's true. I guess I had thought that they got all the scrolls off of one person, but
what was the deal with saying they sent 7 and I only counted 6? Like, what am I missing?
Well, ask Jonathan Hickman, mister.
Well, there's 7 members of the Chosen, right? And so there'd be
said he sent out 7 with like verbally, but then
and it shows that I found that inconsistency as well, and I didn't know if there was 6 others and then he's the 7th, or 7 because there's 6 going to the Chosen and then maybe 1 is going to the Apocalypse trio, because they're not part of the Chosen, but they still got one.
Mike might also be able to fact check me on this, but I think that there's 7 seals or 7 scrolls in Revelations that are broken to release the Apocalypse.
Yeah, Book of Revelation.
That sounds familiar, yeah.
So I wonder if those are connected somehow with like them gathering, because he says he is the Word. So
yeah, that's actually like super David Koresh Waco, like the 7th seal, and like
so every time we see all the scrolls, like while his monster, when Bauer is eating Buer, I'm gonna pretend it's Jack Bauer.
Oh, I like
when he's eating the dude, there's only 6 scrolls on the table here.
Yeah, and then when they fly away, there's also only 6.
There's only 6
in every panel. There's 6
birds.
Curious.
So maybe he's hanging out with the 7th.
I have written the words, and those words are the message, of which there are now 7, 1 for each of the Chosen.
Mm-hmm. So maybe he's is he the other one? Or is he
I
the
don't know.
message
Does he
and not the
consider
chosen?
himself one of the chosen?
I think you got to ask his...
Kind of adorable imagining himself mailing himself a letter.
Do we have a running catalog of who all of them are?
Yeah, have we lost some chosen? Zhao Lin took Mao's place.
Cheveo's kind of a bone creature.
Freeman has one.
Well,
right?
there's a point though, but he does reference in the letter to Bel Solomon that it is also addressed to Cheveo because he knows that they're connected.
Oh, that's true.
So there are 6 scrolls, but there are 7 chosen.
Yeah,
okay, and there's
that makes
2
sense.
chosen possessing one body.
Ooh, I'm glad we're all reading this.
Well,
I'd be screwed.
We haven't. So we also, before we go, haven't touched on just like what's our apocalypse trio up to? What are those kids up to in their giant flesh piles?
So the one thing that stuck out was that he said
several thousand
years, and we talked about that last week. Every 10,000 years or so, and that just kind of brought me back to more confusion. We talked about the timeline last week of them first showing up in like the 50s, 60s, something like that, and then they died, and then they came back. So like they've been taking a long time to bring about this apocalypse.
But this also seems very similar to their kind of re-farming at the beginning of back in Volume 1.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, and I don't know, I need to go back and look at Volume 1. They're standing on a circle that is obviously ritualistic. It's the same spot. Okay. So yeah, they're saying they're doing transubstantiation, which could actually, it could mean they're evolving into new bodies, but and that's why they need the flesh.
Someone's missing a foot.
Some sort of divine escalation somehow, not necessarily, but it does imply a physical change, though, right?
They're going to turn into bread. I think that's
okay. So they're becoming bread. Really? I kind of thought it was going to be a bread thing. Yeah. Yeah,
the 10,000 years thing too, like it doesn't answer my question, but it kind of reiterates my question of like, what exactly is this apocalypse? Like, it doesn't seem like the earth will not exist. It doesn't even seem like all life will not exist, but I'm really curious what they're aiming for with that.
Yeah. What is happening every several thousand years? Yeah, like what is their apocalypse? Like is it a whole new time cycle that's starting, or
10,000 is that Ice Age?
I don't remember.
I don't know.
That's not my area. Andrew?
I should know.
Well, there was a movie 10,000 BC that was supposed to take place in the Ice Age.
And there was a mammoth in the cover of that.
So 2,000 years after that.
And it was a Roland Emmerich movie, so it must be historically accurate.
And in the animated movie Ice Age.
Okay, if we want to bring it back to Ice Age, I could do it. I really like
Squirrel's fault.
Yeah, I really like this the final sequence with Death and Wolf and Crow. I also love when we learn like what's that bird doing? He's like, I don't know, it just showed up one day and it seems to like me, and I'm like, that rules. I don't need anything more than that. Also, kind of like we're saying, nothing happens by chance at this point. So, so good.
I love watching Crow assemble out of birds.
Yeah, just it's always so
cool.
Pretty.
Yeah.
Like I kind of would love, like me again being over here, like please give us more merch. I mean the series is over, but like I would dig having a shirt that's like in white on black of her, just of like that
Crows
shot of her
forming.
like yeah.
And then we get Bel Solomon, and then it's over. Like suddenly it's over.
It went fast for me.
Me too.
Yeah.
Like as we go, like once we're past like the first year that has a lot of world building, like the volumes are a lot quicker reads at that point. Then we only have one more volume that I've read, and then I have to, get the other 3 from you guys.
It's good that we are doing this every other week, or else we certainly would not have been able to do volume 9 when as it stands, volume 9 might be out by the time we get to it.
Yeah. Fingers crossed.
Fingers
knocking on wood.
Crossed. Well, hey, listen, I'll get Jeff an email. He loves those.
Jeff.
Well, if it doesn't come out, we'll just have to do a volume 2 discussion on one of the other books that we've read.
That's true. Or Django probably has the issues. Okay.
I think I do.
You probably do. Okay. So unless we want to, I wanted to talk a little bit about Django and I picked a book for not next week, which is Gideon Falls, not next week, which is volume 6, but for the following week. But are we thumbs up on this one? People are still digging it. Did anyone, I was so coming in hot on this one. Were there people who like would rank it in the bottom 2, bottom 3? Curious.
It was low for me. The Endless Nation stuff is too deep and spiritual for my like, it was great. This book was great, but it was lower for me. My least favorite of the 5.
Okay.
I would put it
good flow. Like, it just, like you said, it went fast. It all didn't make sense, but it all like dragged you along where you needed to be and was exciting.
Yeah. That just like the first sort of that sequence of like the ship flying into the Endless Nation that was 2 pages and you kind of go through the environment. Like that was where I just was like, maybe I'm just in the mood this week or whatever. But I was like ready to just like start screaming about how well done that scene was.
Yeah.
I like it having that pacing of seeing lots of the world, just having, an issue that's about the Endless Nations, and an issue that's more about the House of Mal, and an issue that's more about just each of the nations pretty much gets a little glimpse in there, because we're bouncing around a lot, and I like that. I like that, the pace of that as well.
Yeah, me too, a lot.
Hey, Will, I really, really want your little John Freeman and Doma Lux thing to be a thing, and I'm holding out for it, but I cannot find any, not to imply boobs and gender, but I can't find any Widowmakers that don't have boobs. And so I don't know if that's to imply that they're all female, but
interesting.
That's smart.
There's only like 2 pages of them, but it's very clear that all of them are drawn with boobs. So I'm assuming the implication of female, but
that's smart. Okay.
I mean, trans men exist.
That's true.
That's I don't know. And I can't remember if we have any
would that imply that John Freeman was trans?
Yeah.
I didn't think that John was necessarily a Widowmaker, but it made me, him knowing the tapping language potentially made me think he just had a connection there.
Yeah, I mean, and like all of their sleeper agents don't have to be Widowmakers. Right. They're just saying like the Widowmakers are like the top tier. They're the S rank of their agents.
Yeah, maybe he's a dragon. Because isn't there another one?
Yeah, there's dragons too.
Yeah, dragons. Maybe he's a dragon.
On that SpaceX crew.
Yes. Dang
it. Okay, so we've been doing a lot of image books, and that's been very good. Django and I picked a book that we've both been talking a lot about rereading in the last like 2 or 3 months, and is one of
we're just feeling too lighthearted.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that this isn't a lighthearted book, but what we really wanted to do, and I think some of you have this book, maybe have read it, but if you guys are into it, we're going to do it either way in 4 weeks. Also, if you don't want to do it, I am so not an authoritarian.
Spit out the name of the book.
We could not do it as well. Okay.
If you're building this up, just tell us what the book is.
We ordered like 9 copies of Day Tripper. And if you haven't read Day Tripper, it is, I think, one of the best.
Yes.
One of the best comics of all time. And while at times maybe not super lighthearted, I also think it's like one of the more like beautiful, life-affirming, great things. And several of you are parents. And I think that it is like a perfect... Emily, I didn't know that you weren't a parent. I don't know how you knew that I pointed at 4 squares that weren't your square. Because I don't know how you know how my tiles are arranged, but I didn't. You're a parent.
I'm a parent.
Okay,
I have 2 kids. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. So 5 of you are parents.
When I was muting, it was because my husband was trying to get my baby to. He's asleep now.
I think it's just like an amazing book about parenting. I can't wait to reread it again after I become a parent, but it's just like a really great book about life and choices and decisions, and it's beautiful, and I would love to hear as many different people's thoughts on it as possible. So I hope that a non-image volume 1, like an actual like standalone graphic novel, is a thing that people would be down for. And I appreciate you venturing into this vulnerable space with us, because it is so good.
It is.
There's a reason it's just on my nightstand. So it's just that good.
Okay,
Do
cool.
you have any of those
I feel like
absolutes
a
left,
crop.
or do you sell
We
them?
have one absolute left. We should order some more, but like
Yeah,
Jake
we
and I
have
took
we
the
have
others down.
time to
Yeah.
if
Only a
anybody
month.
wants it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Well,
do you have time to find me issues 1 through 3, which are the only ones I don't own?
Oh.
Django's probably got them, and he doesn't really
Yeah.
keep a collection for himself. So,
Yeah.
okay, cool. Well, that is awesome.
choice.
If you want to read it, cool. Place an order for it. We'll get them out to people as soon as they come in. We have like one in the store, but there'll be a bunch more coming in very shortly, and I am very eager to hear everyone's thoughts on it. Morty
Yeah.
the cat.
I like talking to you guys.
Yeah,
I love
I can't wait for
hearing
next week.
everything.
just
Yeah.
so we don't
Yeah.
forget, next week is Gideon Falls, which I'm very
Yes.
excited to hear everyone's thoughts on.
I'm very
'cause
excited
I
to find out
love that
if
book.
Mike has read it yet.
I've not read it yet. I'm going to order
Cool.
it this week, and
Cool.
then we'll.
I
Yeah.
got a
Will
lot
we
riding
get-
on this, Mike.
If we wait to order Gideon Falls till like after Wednesday, so we can also get polls with that.
Yeah,
Maybe
that's
we-
totally fine. We're doing deliveries on Sundays now, so
Okay.
if you don't mind trying to squeeze a whole book in a day, or
Wednesday.
order it and we'll deliver it to you on Wednesday.
Book club people will make sure get books in enough
Yeah.
time to read the books. That I don't mind guaranteeing. Okay, I guess that's everything.
That's it.
And I am very happy to have gotten a reprieve from everything with you wonderful people. Thank you for talking about good comics. Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for hosting.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
It's
Great
always
night. Keep safe, everyone.
You
Bye.
too, everyone. See ya.